Hello and welcome to the group video critique of my attendees' brilliant watercolour paintings from the recent Istanbul tutorial, all hopefully inspired by my live demo. So every month watercolour painters from all over the world join me for a couple of hours paint along experience, and this month we painted the road to the covered bazaar. Hello, I'm Tim Wilmot. As many of you know, I've had the privilege of leading these live online watercolour workshops for a few years now, where I create and demonstrate a painting while attendees follow along. Now, you don't need to paint in my style. It's really interesting to see everyone's different interpretation and different watercolour techniques of the same scene. And the workshop is open to painters of all levels, beginners and advanced. Everyone is welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be offering some constructive feedback on each of your paintings. My critiques are based on my own perspective, and I'll be highlighting aspects I admire most about each piece. I'll also suggest a small tweak or improvement, maybe one or two, just to help refine your skills even further. Remember, we're here to learn and grow together. Also, remember that as we see the attendees' paintings, the images, the colour and lighting of the photo may not be exactly correct because everyone's got different cameras. They might have taken the picture on a camera, fancy camera, a basic mobile device, phones, and different lighting conditions as well. So just bear that in mind. If you want to take part, then you can see all my events at my event site, crowdcast.io/@TimWilmot. And there you'll see this workshop, which you can still do, and all the previous ones as well. So I'm going to start off with, first of all, a review of the scene and then my demonstration painting. Then we'll go through the attendee paintings one by one and spend a minute or two on each attendee's paintings. Here's our reference photo for the workshop then, as I say, the road leading up to the covered bazaar in Istanbul, and an interesting exercise in watercolour. First of all, trying to get a sense of depth. The road going up there, slight gradient, but up there to the distant mosque and the covered bazaar area. So trying to get a sense of depth in the painting. Next, also, we've got perspective. So the angle of those shop lines up the right hand side, the angle of the shadow here, a little bit of gutter, the almost vertical nature of the roof edges there on that left hand side. Also, we've got a busy market scene. We want to get loads of figures in there. How are you with figures in a street scene painting? And is that something that you try to avoid? So we want to include lots of figures in here, get a sense of the activity going on there. And also those figures will help to convey a sense of depth and also the slight gradient. For example, if we look at the height of these figures here, they are a little bit below, halfway up that road, the heights of the figures there. And if we can peek a little bit further, zoom in a bit further, the heights of the figures maybe about another 20-30 meters beyond that. So that's going to give the sense of that kind of little gradient up the road there. We've got values to contend with as well. All the darks in the shadow of this market stall there on that left hand side, and quite dark up there on that right hand side as well. The bright light hitting the roadside here also. There's some colours to be had. For example, the clothing inside the stalls, some of the blinds, some of the figures, clothing as well. So we want to try and inject just a little bit of colour into the scene. Also, we have some street signage as well, shops, signs to convey the context of the place as well. Okay, well, that's the subject. Let me go into my painting then and just run you through my attempt at the scene. Quite happy with the seen the demonstration painting I did, I think I've got the sense of the depth of the street going up into the distance there, with the lighter, cooler value of the distant buildings. Maybe I could have gone a little bit lighter. Maybe a similar value to the minaret of that mosque there. Perspective looks pretty much okay on the right hand side with those blinds, the vertical rooftops on that left hand side, and then the gutter there, the angle, the sort of jaunty edge of the that shadow there on that left hand side. Placement of figures, yeah, quite happy with that. No sort of dominant figures in the middle, nicely spaced out. Perhaps I could have got a few more figures in there just to make it a little bit busier. You'll notice I removed some of the figures in the bottom right hand corner. I always like avoiding some important object right on the edge of a scene. So I want the main action to be sort of in that area there, and nothing too dominant on the right hand side, or half on, half off, so to speak. I also think I managed to give the impression of some clothing and textiles there in the stall, and just injected a little bit of colour, some thick colour as well, touch of lavender in a few places just to add an extra dimension, a bit of extra interest to those darker areas. Yeah, so fairly happy with my painting. Let's go with the attendees painting then, one by one. Albertus. Definitely got the feeling of depth there, Albertus, with the distant buildings there. Nice value to those. I like the warmth on that right-hand side. It's a beautiful colour. Nice transparency of the watercolour layers as well. Good figures. Perhaps those figures on the left-hand side could be a little bit bigger, but you've definitely got the feeling of perspective going up the hill. A little bit overworked here. Perhaps could be a bit darker on that left-hand side as well, just to emphasise a little bit more of the contrast. Nice placement of these figures as well. I like that lady there, and this male figure walking up the road. Good sense of movement. With the shadows, try not to go over the shadows a couple of times, I would say. Try and keep them nice and fresh. But that shadow, that car shadow there, that's a good value. I'd also avoid that little bit of light there between that figure's legs. Nice one, Albertus, thank you. And Anna, nicely framed. Very good job on the perspective. You certainly, the way that you've got the lines of perspective, the left-hand side, I think that side of the booth there, the seller's market stall, and this line here definitely sort of leads you in, and the heights of the figures as well. Very good job on the perspective and that right-hand side. The sense of depth, yes, I like the atmosphere that you've got there in the distant, right up there at the top of the hill, almost a sort of misty, smoky feel to it, which you might find with market sellers roasting chestnuts and things like that, selling it to the market goers. Yeah, beautiful scene. Perhaps there could be a little bit of injection of colour on this right-hand side. Looks a little bit plain, but a good job. And I like the figure as well. Very good job on the female figure. Ardil. Good composition, nice placement of figures. Perspective is very good. You've got the sense of depth as well. Excellent. Perhaps with the shadows, just a little bit too blue. I might have led you astray. I mean, I like going quite cool with a lot of shadows, and some extensive use of cobalt blue I tend to on a lot of my paintings. Maybe just a little bit too blue, Ardil, on that. Great figures though. I love the figures, especially this male figure here. Looks like maybe he's got a walking stick or something like that. But the angle of those legs and the way that you've done the dry brush mark for the legs as well is very effective at that in the shadow area. And then the impression of the produce there, left and right, very good. The signage, yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Ardil. And Ashley. Let's just zoom in a little bit here. Well, very mysterious atmospheric look to this. Yes, we've got a good composition to it. I think we could have a little bit more light coming down the middle there. Tiny bit overworked in the shadows. So I would try and keep them as fresh as possible. For example, the shadow area here is a little bit fresher than up there on that right-hand side. These figures could stand out a little bit more with some darker values, possibly, and also the shadow could be a little bit darker as well. I would go for the shadow of these walking figures. Go with a similar value to that, Ashley, I would say. Certainly got the sense of the clothing and so on hanging up there in the stores. Very good job on the perspective on that right-hand side. That is excellent. That angle there, the rooftops, the sense of depth with the distant minaret. Always good idea having these on a street scene like this, having the cable and power lines and telephone lines or whatever stringing across, linking, just connecting the left-hand side with the right-hand. It's always a good idea. Thanks so much, Ashley. And Isla. I love the colours. That's a beautiful, I like that sort of greeny blue of the distance. It looks like you've moved the angle of the view just slightly to the right of the source photo. Nothing wrong with that. I like it. We've got more of a, we're looking right up the middle rather than where the photo was taken more from the left-hand side and we're looking up the road. You've got it, we're almost sort of standing right in the middle there. So you've got to be a bit careful not to make the scene too symmetrical. But I think you pulled it off in that we've got that vertical nature there. Perhaps we could have extended or made the perspective a little bit more pronounced on that side. But everything else looks good. That sort of central gutter going now, because we're standing in the middle of the street. That gutter there it was on the left-hand side, but now it's going off to the left. Perspective is very good there. I love all this watercolor effect that you got here, these blooms and cauliflowers appearing. Very good job on the figures as well. Excellent figure work and shadows. Also connecting the figure with the shadows also. Yeah, good job. Well done, Isla. And Barb. I like the panoramic scene. We will see on the attendees paintings, we'll see different dimensions of paper used. And I know Barb likes her sketchbook versions and these wider ones. This really works. You actually, with the scene, you could have gone a portrait orientation. I did point that out in the demonstration. That could be a possibility to just focus maybe on one side or the view right up the street and going for maybe quite a narrow portrait one. But Barb's gone for this extended one here. And the danger going wider is that you could possibly make the street a little bit too wide. But you pulled off, Barb. I think you've got the width of the street just right. The sense of depth, fantastic. Maybe you could have gone a little bit lighter with the sky, possibly, but you certainly got the sense of depth. Perspective is brilliant. Those shadows, so fresh. I like all the colours that you've got in those shadows as well. The granulation, look at the warmth there. Cooler, down towards the light of the blinds on the right-hand side. Figures are brilliant. Maybe that one there might be a little bit too big for where it's placed. That one perhaps could be a little bit closer to us, but very good figures. I love that one on the right-hand side. Sense of movement. Yeah, good figure work. Well done, Barb. I like the dimensions of the paper as well. Right, Bronwyn. Good composition, perspective very good, all over the place, excellent perspective. With the values, I would have thought, or in my opinion, it's always my opinion, I think you could have gone a little bit darker with the shadows, Bronwyn, in this bottom left-hand corner. These sort of car shadows going across the street are just a little bit darker. Lovely brushwork, different techniques of brushwork on that left-hand side, dry brush marks there, these vertical lines, nice little bit of light. Lighter areas could be objects just catching a bit of light, but that whole area there where you've got the just very simple shapes of light and shade, a bit of negative painting around the lighter areas, fantastic. Great figures, fantastic figures, especially that one there. The actual angle of that right leg, really do feel that person striding up the street towards the market. Yeah, excellent job. Well done, Bronwyn. And Christy. And Christy always gets in way more figures than anyone else, and we've got figures in abundance here. I'm not even going to attempt to count them. The figures on that left-hand side, they're brilliant. You've got to capture a little bit of light. I zoom in. A little bit of light on, I think particularly that area there. The light on that, I guess a male figure, the head, shoulders, and then female figure, the head there, top of the headscarf. Fantastic. All the figures. It's important with figures, when you've got lots of figures like this, have them going in different directions, okay? Left to right, away from us, coming towards us. And you've certainly got this figure here pointing down. Excellent figure work. And perhaps on the left-hand side, you could have gone a little bit darker. And also with the shapes of that clothing, perhaps just have them a little bit more random and different sizes of that. Yes, it looks a bit too soft. I think you could do with a few more harder edges on that side. But that figure work, all these figures, tells a story. That one over there, and then, well, look at these two characters there on the right-hand side, having a chat with each other. This lady here just coming away from, maybe she's just purchased something. Excellent. Fantastic. Well done, Christy. And Colin. Very good job on the perspective. Good sense of depth as well. Perhaps on the buildings in the distance, just avoid too dark a line. These lines here, just a little bit too dark, or the edges just a little bit too hard. I think if we wanted to push them back even further, those lines might be just a little bit lighter or a little bit softer. But good job though on the depth and the colour there. Figures are excellent. Perspective, very good indeed. These 5 red dabs here, perhaps they could be used to emphasize the perspective a little bit more if we had one there, and then, do you know what I mean, just trying to help with the perspective a little bit more, something like that, so you've got that direction and that kind of the angle of those lines just to help with the perspective. Let's get rid of that drawing. The shadows are brilliant. Just not go too blue. Perhaps the shadow here could be a little bit darker as well, so that it's not the same value as the distance. I mean, I made the mistake with mine. I think my distant buildings could have been a lot lighter, and possibly my shadows in the foreground a bit darker, just to push the values a little bit more. But nice one, Colin. Certainly conveyed the scene. Lovely atmosphere of light coming into the scene. Colin number 2 then. That's Colin W. Colin number 1. Colin number 2. Yeah, and my eyes immediately went to that light here there, which is that sort of angular blind going over the street, that sort of screen going over the street. Yes, I like it. Good sense of depth. Could have got maybe just a little bit of a softer edge to those distant buildings. That would push it back even more. Nice lines connecting left and right. Good job with the perspective. Figures are excellent. With the figures in the shade, try not to make them too light. this one here might be just a little bit too light, or possibly it's the edge, Colin. If that edge was just a little bit softer, like you've got here, these are really good. They're a little bit more atmospheric, and they're almost merging the shadows. And this one here is very good as well. It looks like a sort of hooded figure maybe walking away from us. But the way that the legs just kind of merge into the shadow there, very nice. And also perhaps a little bit too light on the objects there on that left-hand side. Yes, a good job of the perspective, and I really do like the sense of light there hitting that right-hand side. Figures on the right-hand side, yes, very good, lovely, good job on that lady there, sense of movement. That's a really good figure. And that one there striding away. Perhaps some of the figures in the middle there might be a little bit too small. You've gone perhaps a little bit too small too quick. It could be maybe just 20–25% larger, taller in that kind of middle area. Nice one though, Colin. Great sense of light, like it. Next, Daniel. Very loose style. I like the technique and the style of these brush marks and the directions of those brush marks. Very expressive. For example, it's almost like a cross, an X going on here. But then we've got these other lines here. The use of white gouache, a little bit of white gouache, which some people might frown on, but I like it. And then these marks here, dry brush marks, brilliant. Very good sense of movement. Perhaps that figure there with the legs looks a little bit awkward. I reckon the legs look a little bit too crossed. The other figures though are very good, especially on the left-hand side. Those figures there. This blue figure here, the face, that blue figure, that is an excellent sort of pose for that figure coming towards us, like it. Maybe we don't have the feeling of light, could have gone a little bit darker with the shadows in the foreground, but those brush marks, the danger of going darker, I guess, with the shadows is that you'd obliterate these very expressive dry brush marks here, these angular brush marks. Yeah, I like it. Well done, Daniel. Daniela. Very colourful. Good feeling of perspective, and also the gradient and slightly the road disappearing round to the right-hand side up there at the top. Yep, good job on that. Lots of figures as well. Brilliant. You've gone for maybe a slightly slimmer approach to some of these figures, but that really works. You've kept them still very much in proportion and typical figures with bags and so on. Maybe some of the figures on the left-hand side might have a little bit less of the light, the highlights on the tops of their heads and the shoulder, just a little bit less. It works, I think, on the right-hand side there with the light coming from the top left corner. And likewise, perhaps some of the objects on the left-hand side, just a little bit too light. I would go a little bit darker. You possibly could. With hindsight, you could glaze over them a little bit more just to push them back into the shadows to increase the feeling of light there in the middle. By making this darker on the left, we can get a little bit more light into the scene. But nothing overworked, very fresh, beautiful scene. Well done. Next, David. Well, let's just zoom into this. Sometimes when I zoom in, I might lose a little bit of the definition. Very colourful. I like the style. The very loose brush marks, brushworks. Got the sense of depth. Fantastic, especially those buildings down the left-hand side. Super. Just a light sort of touch. Very light value for that minaret there. The warmth of the street, you haven't gone for that really bright colour of the middle of the street there. I like that warmth. The warmth of the, sort of mimic with the warmth of the blinds on that right hand side. The brushwork, the shapes that you've got of all of the produce on the left-hand side. Oh, it's a super painting. Very, very nice indeed. Just what watercolour should be, that sort of style. Yeah, well done, David. And Elizabeth. This has got a very nice warm feeling to it. You can almost warm your hands with this. The warmth, particularly on that side there. I guess it's that little triangle of colour there, and a similar colour for the blinds, the sides of the blinds, the fronts of the blinds, that side. Yeah, excellent. Good job with the perspective, sense of depth as well. The perspective on the left-hand side, okay, let's just unpick this. So we've got that angle there, all right. We've got the angle of the gutter. Yeah, I think it's this, the front of this stall here. If we went with one of those angles, let's keep with that angle there being the top of that bench, then maybe this bottom angle could be a little bit steeper. All right, so that we've got the, the sense of perspective just a little bit more accurate, I reckon, on that. Figures are brilliant. Perhaps that lady could be just a little bit more to the left, just so that she's in that danger area, I think, of being a figure that's really well painted, but just about to disappear off that bottom right corner. Move her in a little bit more. But going back to the feeling of warmth, brilliant. And also the contrast of those warmer values with the cool shadows on the side of those buildings. Yeah, well done, Elizabeth. Fiona. Slightly more squarish dimension to the scene. Good perspective. I like these two figures here. Well done on introducing a new figure coming in from the right-hand side. So these two figures, they're having a little chat there in the market scene. Good sense of depth as well. Perspective, yes, very good indeed on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, the rooftops could be maybe just a little bit steeper on that side there. And again, like other people, that table front or the side panel of that store with all the clothing and bits and pieces on the top of it, we could just make that angle just a little bit steeper there. Figures, so figures are very good. Let's just zoom into the shadows, try and avoid the light between the legs as well, that light there, but good figures in the shadows, just giving us an impression of something going on. Perhaps the ones in the distance could have just a little bit of a harder edge to some of them. But they're really excellent figures. And those three there, very, very good indeed. Well done, Fiona. Gwen, very colourful. Yeah, lots of different colours in this one. Good job with the perspective, both left and right. The sense of depth as well. I like this soft feeling that you've got in the middle there, Gwen. It's very effective, really gives a lot of atmosphere to the scene. Figures are very good. Perhaps a little bit less of the highlighting of the figures deep there in the shadows. Particularly these two guys here, I would say that would work better with just less of the highlight on those. But a good bunch of figures. And also you're connecting them, randomly spacing them as well. And you got the feeling of the gradient of the street. The figures here, perhaps that one, this figure here, the left arm might be just a little bit too thick on that one. And then the lady on the right-hand side, yes, very good. But like a few other people, just be careful with a really good figure like that when you've done it so well. It's sort of disappearing off that right-hand side. If that figure was sort of about there, I think it would look a lot better. But beautiful colours, just the right values of that shadow. Perhaps that panel there might be a little bit too light, possibly. But those colours, you've really got lots of red, yellows, blues, warms and cools. Fantastic. Helen. Good composition. I think with the perspective on this one, it looks as if we're looking down on the scene a little bit more because of the almost the horizontal nature of the fronts of those, the ends of those blinds there, but also the heights of the figures, because you've got these nearby figures are there, and then we're going on just a few meters on, we're going out slightly higher. Do you see, you're actually sort of, it's almost as if we're on a first floor window looking down the scene, or we're on the top of a step ladder looking down. Nothing wrong with that. I think it gives more of a feeling of sort of aerial view, like we're on a low-flying drone or something like that, looking up the street. It's certainly got the feeling of looking up the street a lot more. Good job with the figures though, sense of movement also, particularly that one there. The way that you've done the clothing on that one. I like the palette of colours. You haven't gone for really bright colours in this one. You've kept it sort of more of I guess you've got more of a sort of winter feeling to the street scene here, which I think the photograph was taken during the winter, a sunny day during the winter. Good feeling of depth. The figures on the left-hand side, just watch out for when you've got a group of figures going to the distance, try not to make them too regular in their spacing, that we've got one there, one there, one there, one there. Do you see what I mean? Like the sort of equal space between, just try and mix it up a little bit more, like you've got with the rest of the figures. They're excellent. Yeah, nice start, that one. And I like the way that you've done the textiles, all of the projects are on the left-hand side. Well done, Helen. And Isabel. Nice bright scene. Perspective is very, very good. I like the placement of your figures. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. Well, zoom back out. Very nice placement of figures. Very, very good indeed. I like these two in the shadows here. I think more of a adolescent or child figure, lady. Great. That left-hand side there of that lady. Great sense of movement. Yeah, really good job on the figures and injection of colours as well. Nice style, nothing overworked. Even though on that right-hand side here, we've gone in with red, a little bit of yellow there on top of the base shadow. Doesn't appear overworked, very fresh, nice. It's got a nice atmosphere to it. Very, very, you've achieved a lot of brightness in the scene. Perhaps we could have gone a little bit darker with the shadows here, but that edge, look at that edge. That's a superb edge. Maybe on the shadows, just avoid, maybe you've done a little bit of a faint pencil line there, but to keep that fresh, just try and imagine where the edge of those shadows might be. And if you can, avoid doing that pencil outline of the shadows. I tend to not do that with shadows. Try not to sort of draw the outline of the shadow, just go for it at the painting stage. This lady figure here is fantastic. Like that lady there with that kind of curve. And you've got that bit of a curve there, bit of movement in the clothing. Good sense of depth. Perspective is very good. Nice one, well done, Isabel. Let's just make sure I didn't jump one. Right, Isabel and then Jackie. Nice bright scene. Maybe with the composition you've got the feeling of a slightly wider scene in that kind of width there and the height of the stalls on the right hand side. Nothing wrong with that. Very good composition, good balance of figures. This one here looks a little bit awkward with the angle of that figure and the configuration of the legs. Figures in the shadows, try and make them a little bit darker, I would say, and also try and avoid, again, like a few other people, the lighter boundary around the figures. Very nice watercolor techniques of all the shapes and colors that you've got on that left hand side. Could be a little bit darker way up there in the top, a little bit darker up there, I feel, Jackie. With this shape here, we could have used that to emphasize the perspective by maybe having a more sort of vertical edge and then going in at a sharper angle on that side, if you see what I mean. Great sense of depth in the distance. You move the minaret over on that left hand side. Nothing wrong with that. We still got the feeling of Istanbul, and yes, with the values in the distance up there, top of the street, certainly looks like it's way off there, several hundred meters up the road. With the shadow, I would avoid, I'm not sure if you painted the road after the shadow, but we've got a little bit of a light edge creeping in, so just try and avoid that. And I would have said, generally, we would be painting the road surface first. You might have done it this way, the road surface first, and then go over, because this is going to be darker on the left-hand side. Take that colour over to the left-hand side, maybe all way over the left-hand side in initial phase, or certainly over the edge of the shadow. And then when you go over the shadow, you're not going to get that. When this is dry, you're not going to get that kind of white, little bits of white creeping in there, okay? It's going to connect those two elements a little bit better. Right, well done, Jackie, though. And Jean. I like it. Just be careful with the figures. They're all coming towards us. All their faces are staring towards us. Looks a little bit ominous. So like you got here, figure there walking up the street. So just have some of the figures do a 180 and have them walking up the street. But lovely bunch of figures. Perspective is very good indeed on the right-hand side. I like the technique of the blocks, these shapes that you've got of the blinds on that right-hand side. And just be careful, a little bit of overworking there. Oops, a little bit of overworking there. And with the distant buildings, just avoid too much detail. And also some of the edges might be just a little bit too hard up there at the top of the street. I like the colours though. Beautiful mixture of reds and cools, and this shadow down here is very nice indeed. Especially, I like that little bit of a soft edge there. A mixture of got a mixture of a soft edge and then a hard edge comes around. Yeah, hard edge then down to the bottom. I would say also avoid that hard edge within the shadow there. Looks a little bit, unless it was a little bit of the pavement or the road, something on the road leading us or helping with that perspective. Well done, Jean. Fantastic. Just a little bit of mention about the future events coming up. If you go to my event site, which is crowdcast.io/@TimWilmot, you can take part in previous events. So this is a replay of the Istanbul event. So any attendees that registered and paid to attend, they can watch the recording as many times as they want to. And also I do make a private recording available on YouTube for you as well. Patreon members, if you join my Patreon painting club, very active community of enthusiastic watercolour painters from all over the world, you get a 50% discount on future workshops. So please look at my posting in or on Patreon for more information on that. But certainly a great way of accessing the material. And if you go to my channel page, which is crowdcast.io/@TimWilmot, there you can see the future workshop coming up and all of the Patreon, if you're on Patreon, all the Patreon ones that we've done in the past, as well as the public ones. Hope to see you on the next event. Joanne. Yeah, nice feeling of depth for this one. You've gone very light with the distant building, kept them very simple and vague. Perhaps some of these shapes could be a little bit more geometric just to portray those building shapes a little bit more. I like the bunch of figures there. Again, try and mix them up as regards their orientation, the way they're walking and so on. But yeah, nice feeling of light streaming down the middle there. This figure here, perhaps the legs look a little bit awkward, but the figures on the whole are in good proportion, and very nice lady figure on the right hand side. Good job with the perspective on the right hand side. On the left, I would say try and go a little bit more vertical with that top edge, just so that we feel we're nestled in on that left hand side. And you've gone with quite a sort of an opaque-ish colour to that sky. I think it's a nice colour actually. I went with quite a light colour for mine, just so that we could sort of emphasise the bright light coming into the scene. But I quite like yours. It's very nice. So you've almost like two layers. Looks like there's a very light initial creamish layer, and then you've gone in with a little bit of a green colour there, a light green colour. Very nice. Yeah, it's a nice sort of soft feeling to the scene. This figure here, just avoid the top of that head connecting, if I zoom in a bit more, we've got the head here, and then it's just connecting with the top of that blind. So I would say try and have the head, connecting to it, or have the head maybe over here somewhere, just so that we're not kind of in alignment there on that connection point. Nice one though, Joanne. A nice soft feeling to that market scene. Well done. And let me just make sure I didn't miss one there. Joe, very bright. Yeah, different interpretation of the scene. Like the style. Loads of figures. Perhaps we don't have the feeling of the gradient going up the hill, Joe, but it doesn't matter. We've certainly got the sense of depth of those distant buildings there. They are really light. You've gone very light with those. Could have actually excluded that little line there and kept it really vague. Or maybe imagine that line not being there, just a little bit darker with that building area, and then just keep that as you have done. You've got a nice soft edge between the sky and the buildings. The shadows, yeah, I guess when you've gone so light there in the distance, you can't go too dark in the nearby area. I like the planters coming in from the right hand side. That's a nice feature, a nice touch. This lady as well, the angle of the legs, the face sort of looking over to the left-hand side of the scene. Excellent. And the transparent layers as well. These little transparent layers of shapes in the shadows underneath the blinds. Yeah, nice one, Joe. Thank you. Do we have two Johns? No, one John. Right, John. I like it. The colours, brilliant. You've gone, your street looks a little bit wide, and also your figures are quite small in this middle area here, John, but it still works. You've captured the feeling of Istanbul and everything that's going on here. These cables going from left to right, a little bit of light cable there against a darker background. We've got, the perspective is very good. Let me just check perspective. Yeah, perspective looks all right. This side here, we could pronounce that just a little bit more on the perspective, just to push that a tiny bit. But yes, the angles are all very, very good. I know your style. You don't go for too many of these hard edges and a lot of dry brush marks. And I like it. Yeah, I think it's very effective in this sort of scene. And I like the contrast of that warm yellow with this blue. We're kind of exploiting that colour wheel, aren't we, of the opposite side of the colour wheel. That yellow with the blue there, or a little bit of violet up there, or violet over here. Yeah, good figure work. Perhaps some of them are a little bit too slim, like that one there, a little bit too slim, but this one's all right. Figure, good job with the figures. Mix up a little bit. I like that one there. This lady sort of silhouetted against a lighter background. She looks like she's really excited. She bought something that she was wanting to buy, and she's got the bag there and coming, or either walking up the street or coming down the street, doesn't matter. But yeah, nice figure there, sort of in the middle. Yeah, very good job on the figures, and also the white gouache lines here, where I guess it's the tops of the clothing where the clothes are on hangers or something like that. On that left-hand side, these marks that you've got. That's a great idea, actually. I wish I thought of that. But yeah, good idea to sort of emphasize the feeling of those clothes hanging up there, way up in the top of the stall. Yes, very sort of busy scene with the cabling and everything that's going on. Fantastic. Well done, John and Joy. Love it. Very nice. Again, this is similar in style to, was it David a little bit earlier, where you've just got, it's very loose and it's very colourful. Just you're emphasizing some of the shapes. The figure here looks like a male figure with a backpack and grabbing a mobile phone, perhaps taking a picture or talking or whatever. But you haven't made it too dark, and I think that makes it a little bit more atmospheric there. There's looks like a guy here pushing a trolley of produce up the road. This lady walking from left to right. These two here, my eyes immediately went to this striking hat with the dark band over it. Very good. Bit of shadow on the right-hand side. You've kept it transparent. Look at this lovely loose paintwork on that left-hand side. Dripping down. Just letting watercolour do what it wants to do. Yellow against the blue. Got the sense of depth. We've got the perspective. Very nice indeed. Nice one, Joy. That's one of your best, actually, Joy. Right. Lauren. Yeah, a different style again. Light, especially the top part of the scene, the composition, and on that right-hand side as well. Almost a sort of pen and wash with these darker lines, just defining the edges of the buildings and the blinds. You've moved the figures around a lot, I can see, and also you've changed that left-hand side. We've got a different kind of stall there on the left-hand side, a little bit lower, a light here strapped to the side, which you would see in market areas like this for when the lighting gets a little bit darker. Yeah, really nice. The angle of the shadows work well also. Look at those shadows. Fantastic. Not overworked. You've done it once. You've connected the shadows with the... Look at that connection there. That figure's leg directly connecting with the shadow. This one here, the red of the dress coming down, mixing with a cooler shadow. This shadow connecting with the car shadow on the left-hand side. You might have gone over the shadow a couple of times. I'll just try and avoid that, Lauren. Excellent. Yeah, well done for changing the stalls and the figures a lot as well, all over the place. Thank you, Lauren. And Leslie. Again, like somebody else's, it looks like we're looking down on the scene here with the size of the figures in the foreground and the difference in the distances between the tops of the head. So the size of those figures there they're quite small. I would say if you want to, not sure if it was your intention, Leslie, but try and have the figures in the foreground a little bit bigger, just to try and give you that sense of perspective. And then also the feeling of looking down on the scene. So we've got the tops of the nearby figures there. Then as we go up the street, we're sort of going up, do you see? So again, there's nothing wrong with that. Looks like we're looking down on the scene a little bit more from a first floor or second floor window. Yeah, so just watch for that if you want to try and get the feeling of being on the same level as the foreground figures and we're looking up the street. Apart from that, good job on the perspective, especially on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, this, again, compared to the figures, this stool here might be a little bit too small. A little bit too large, actually. This table here might be a little bit too large. So we'd want the figures to be something like that. Their waist would be sort of in line with the top of the table, something like that. That's a ridiculous figure, but you get the idea. Well done with all of these colours going on there in the left-hand side. With the shadows, just maybe try and make the shadows a little bit more solid, less of the lighter bits creeping in there. But you've kept everything nice and fresh. There's nothing overworked here. And you've exploited what watercolour does, all of this blending going on here. Sort of miniature blooms and cauliflowers appearing, bit of transparency, lots of different colours, bit of cobalt green creeping in. Yeah, lovely colours. Well done, Leslie. Thanks very much indeed. Certainly got the feeling of light and, well, it definitely looks like Istanbul to me. Right, now, Lillian. Nice and dark on that left-hand side. That really does exploit the light. Perspective is very good on this. Very good indeed. You've got the sense of depth as well, Lillian, with the distant buildings and the soft edges as well. Not too dark with the window details and other architectural things. Certainly got the feeling of depth. Perhaps we could have a few more figures in the middle there just to make it a little bit more busy with the figures, but the figures that you've got are very good indeed. This lady here might be a little bit too big compared to the figures on the left-hand side. I would say that figure there is just the right size. That's a very good figure. And a nice soft edge to the figure, feeling a movement, but that's just the right size. Now, taking that as a measuring stick, all right, so these figures on the left, they're just a little bit too small. I would say they would need to be, and assuming the heights of the figures about there, all right, so have the, let's see how carefully I can draw these. So just have them a little bit bigger in that area there. Something like that, I reckon. Similar to this guy in the middle, he is about the right size. Well, even he could be just about 10 or 20% taller, I reckon, just to keep things in proportion, help that perspective. But I do like the shadow that you've got there in that stall. It does really make the scene so much brighter. Very nice indeed. Yeah, well done. Thanks, Lillian. And a nice bit of warmth over on that side as well. Nice brush marks, but that figure there, very good indeed. Right, that's Lillian. Lucy. Good job with the perspective. You've actually changed the composition. You've made less of a feature of the left-hand side. We've got more going on the right-hand side. I think it works really well. Very loose watercolor. I like this figure here with maybe white hair or white hat or something like that, but looking down on the street, walking out the street. Yeah, beautiful colors, nice and loose, soft edges. I like those three geometric shapes there. That works really well. Bit of greenery there, which I think a few people picked up on There were some little sort of trees or shrubs growing up there on that right-hand side. Certainly got the feeling of depth. Perspective, yes. It was just, yeah, perspective is yes. I would avoid this figure on the right-hand side. No, I guess that figure on the right-hand side is all right because you haven't gone too dark with it and you haven't gone too detailed either with that figure. And it's sort of, in a way, it sort of just frames that right-hand side. So there are certain situations where a figure or a car or some important object on the very edge of the composition can sort of work if you don't put too much detail into it, and it kind of gels with the rest of the scene, where it frames the composition in some way. On the left-hand side, I would probably go a little bit darker with some of those figures. What would work there on that left-hand side, because you've got a lot of light there, what would work well here is imagine all this left-hand side really dark, and then we just got the kind of silhouetted figures of different people. Do you know what I mean? Down there on that right-hand side. And no detail of heads or clothing or bodies, but just that kind of silhouetted shape. That would work as well. Another idea for painting that scene. Well done, Lucy. Thanks very much indeed. Mark, do we have a couple of marks? Yeah. Mark number 1, Mark N. Right. Good sense of warmth coming into the scene with one or two other people have done that with the colour of the road on that right-hand side, and then replicated with the colour of the blinds works really well. Very good job on the perspective. The perspective is fantastic. With the depth, perhaps with some of the windows, could make them a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, less detail, push that back a little bit, but it certainly got the feeling of depth. The figures are very good indeed. I would say with some of the figures, just try and blend them in with the shadow. These are the shadows. Blend them in with the shadows a little bit more, like you've done with this one here, this figure here. That is excellent. The soft left leg, the right leg, darker, harder edge to it, and then it's sort of a zoom in, and then it's sort of merged with the shadows. Merge the shadows on the left-hand side. Yeah. And these figures up here, they're very good as well. However you did those, Mark, brilliant. Shadows could be a little bit darker in this foreground area. But it's nice and loose. Perhaps a little bit of overwork on that right-hand side. Shadows over here a little bit better than the shadows on that right-hand side. But it's a nice composition, and the perspective is so good on this. Well done, Mark. And mark number 2. Very loose. I like it. Good composition. Perspective is good. Perhaps you've gone a little bit too dark with the distant buildings, Mark. If you wanted to push that back a little bit more, go a tiny bit lighter. That minaret's come out really well. That's just the right value. Good, good sky filler with those birds as well, and nicely randomly placed as well. Those birds with different wing shapes, and for example, that one there compared to that one. Yep, that works really well. Figures could be a little bit larger, a little bit taller, I reckon by about 50%, something like that. Yes, they're just a tiny bit too small. And that, if that's a figure there, that figure there is too tall compared to these two. It should be, the top of the head should be more in there, if that is a figure, Mark. Yeah, make the figures a little bit bigger, because using reference points like this table here, this top would be sort of hip or waist height. So you want to try and make these figures just a little bit taller. But nice brush marks. The shadows are very expressive. Bit of splattering going on as well. Don't think we've had too much splattering with other attendees. Yeah, that works. Nice bit of sort of texture. Good strong line there. That's a nice strong line. Always good to have good, strong, straight edges somewhere in the composition. Excellent. Well done, Mark. Mary. Brilliant depth. Look at that. Yeah. Nice. Perhaps the pencil line showing goes through just a little bit too much, but not too bad. Good sense of depth. Perspective. Yes. Very good job of perspective, left and right. Excellent figures. I particularly like this figure here. As I've pointed out before, connecting it with the shadows. And then also the continuing that vertical shape going down, that can give a sense of a bit of shininess to the surface where there's a bit of reflection of that darker figure. This lady figure on the right hand side, excellent. Soft edge, movement, nothing overworked. Brilliant. These three on the left, Mary, I think if they were a little bit darker, and these two look as if they're connected a little bit too much. Perhaps either have one in front of the other or a little bit of space between them on those two. But fantastic, it's nice and loose. Just try and avoid going over the shadows a couple of times as well. Try and do it all in one. But that figure there, brilliant. And the sense of depth that you've got, nice and loose, not going over it again. You've done it once and left it. What a Mary. Mike. Yeah, good job with the perspective. Good job with the value. You've gone for a yellow, those yellow distant buildings, trying to get a bit of warmth there. Just got to be a bit careful not going too much on the warm side of things, because that can, of course, bring it a little bit closer to us. I think something like that kind of value there would be better on those more distant buildings. With the figures are good, especially these foreground figures. With this middle area, this is a little bit confusing here, where, of course, we've got more of them. I would say, try and think of a group of figures all as one shape, rather than as you might have done, as I think you might have done, just trying to individually paint in lots of people, sort of one blob at a time, their head and then their figures, and then you go along to the next figure, that one as well. Try and think of them all as one shape, I reckon, particularly where we've got those figures in a group. And it might be difficult then, when they're so far away, to know when one figure ends and another one begins, so to speak. Good job with the values. Love that shadow there. Nice bit of granulation. Haven't gone too much on the sort of cool blue side. More of a sort of violety colour. Yeah, well done. Thanks very much, Mike. Misty. Yeah, I like it. My eyes are particularly drawn to your bit of Turkish writing up there, and that yellow against that kind of cooler red, very striking. Right, perspective. A little bit difficult to see what's going on the right-hand side, but I think you've got the feeling of the perspective of the scene. The left-hand side, the angle there, the gutter, the angle of that shadow. I think we've got that there. It's a little bit overworked, I would say, with some of the brush marks that you've got, and a little bit here, perhaps with that sort of opaquish white. So just be a little bit careful with that, and that sort of black, dry brush mark there, the white brush mark. So just be careful with, maybe you're using too big a brush for certain areas. So particularly with this white, with any sort of white highlighting there, try and use a small brush with a small head, or a fine point to it. Love the colours though. that you've got going on in here, going up the street. Perhaps we haven't got the feeling of depth in the distance there. It could have gone a little bit lighter up here, Misty, with the values, and also a little bit softer with the edges as well, just to try and push that back a little bit. Figures. Now that's a good figure there. It stands out. It's a dark figure against a lighter background. Good shadow, nice and fresh. You haven't overdone it. This one here, the lady, yes, that looks good. Perhaps with the head. We could just... No, I have to be careful here. So the head... okay, so your head's there. Now with that one, perhaps that figure could be just a little bit taller. And then we've got the feeling of perspective a little bit more. Figures in the shadows, just watch with the head sizes being a little bit too large. And yeah, it's just a little bit overworked in that area there. So try and make every brush stroke count. Try and reduce the number of brush strokes you use to paint a particular object or an area, I would say on that one, Misty. But it's certainly got the feeling of bright light coming in there. And I do like that combination of that sort of greeny yellow and that cooler red. Nice one. Yeah, that whole area, beautiful. And almost like a little bit of liner wash up there. Well done, Misty. Thank you. And, oh, did I jump forward? No. Pat. Zoom in on this one a little bit more. Can I go in a tiny bit more? There we go. Good job with the perspective. I'm not sure if it's the angle of your photo, but there's a little bit of a lean with some of those figures in the middle area. The other figures, though, are fantastic. I like them, particularly this lady figure here. You kept the clothing light, really works against the lighter background. This figure here, that leg, that extended leg, brilliant. That too looks like, well, I think it just really helps with the perspective. Again, it just draws us in up the street a little bit more. You've got the sense of depth with the distant buildings. Just watch the darkness of some of those windows. Minaret, fantastic. Left-hand side. Yeah, I like these sort of slats that you've got, these lighter slats. Maybe it could be little bits of gaps in the roofing or the cover there, and we've got some light coming through. The figure, I like the figure here, maybe a little bit too light, that one there on that left-hand side. And lots of really nice colours as well, particularly on that right-hand side. Could have gone a bit darker, perhaps, overall on that right side, particularly up there in the roof space, away from the street level. Oh, it's a really colourful scene. I like it. Very nice. Well done, Pat. And Randy. Lots of different colours in this one. Beautiful. The placement of the figures works really well. Also, being in that kind of area there. Excellent. And I think with this one, we've got a bit more of an oldie-worldy sort of feeling with the curvature. I quite like the curvature that you've got coming down here and then going up that left-hand side. Lovely brushwork, beautiful colours, figures are fantastic. It's certainly got the feeling of depth there. That minaret, cool at the top, comes down to a subtle, warmer, yellowish colour. Brilliant, love it. And these objects here, CCTV cameras, whatever, peering on the crowds. Yeah, a lovely loose watercolour. Well done, Randy. Thank you very much indeed. Ravi B. Do we have two Ravis with us? No, only one Ravi. Right, Ravi. Yes, and you've made the street maybe a little bit wider, but the perspective is very good indeed. Nothing overworked, nice and fresh, good sense of values. The blue there, maybe just a little bit too blue, but just the right value. Figures are excellent. The figures in the distance though, perhaps their heads are just a little bit too big on those distant figures there. Make them a bit smaller. Nice cabling running across. Feeling of a little bit of a glow there, the way that you've done the sky. There could be perhaps a bit of, I don't know, maybe a lighter cloud, perhaps. Sun coming from the left, a lighter cloud there. Yeah, and the brushworks on the left-hand side, you kept it really, really simple on that left-hand side. Nothing too detailed about the textiles and so on there on the left-hand side. Works. I like this shadow here, going this blind here, casting a shadow over this right-hand blind. Excellent. Well done, Ravi. And Robert, let's just zoom into this one a little bit more. Yeah, very loose. We don't have the darkness of the shadow on the left-hand side, but certainly you've got the feeling of Istanbul here with the minaret. Maybe with the dome, perhaps it could have slightly straighter sides, all right, and not this sort of round bit there on that right-hand side, but nice and light on that right-hand side. Could have gone a bit darker with the shadows on the left. Good job with the figures, nice placement of figures. You've got the sense of the upward gradient of the street, Robert. Yes, I just think it needs to be a little bit darker in that bottom left-hand corner. And the car shadow then sort of coming across the street and maybe connecting with those figures. Perhaps it could have gone a bit darker with the shadows of those figures as well. Yeah, well done. Like it. Thanks very much, Robert. And let's go to the next one. Robbie. Very colourful. Yeah, striking. Nice and bright. Perspective is very good. Again, the table on that left-hand side, I would say, maybe the top would be a little bit more horizontal on that one, but that bottom edge is okay. Figures are really good, especially the couple of ladies there on the right-hand side. Yeah, certainly helps us with the gradient going up towards the street. Just be careful of a little bit of overworking of the shadow on the car shadow going across the street. I would go a little bit darker, perhaps a little bit less blue there. You've got the sense of depth of the street really well, and the way that you've done the minarets as well, the value, brilliant. I like the geometric shape of all of the, almost abstract in a way, the way that you've done all the clay. You spend a bit of time on observing the scene and then making these marks really count, particularly on that right-hand side. The impression of all of these bits and pieces hanging from the top of those stores. Yeah, well done, Robbie. Thanks very much indeed. And Roger. Perspective is good. Certainly got the feeling of depth as well. I'm not so sure. I like the way that you've got a really soft look to the stalls on the right-hand side. This figure here, hands in his pockets, waiting for a customer to appear. Yes, I like the way that you've done that. Not so sure about the softness on the left-hand side. I think on that left-hand side, you could have gone a little bit darker and maybe a bit harder with the edges, I reckon, Roger, on the left-hand side. Figures are very good indeed. You've got a good bunch of figures. Perhaps we could have a few more there in that middle area. But you've got the way that you've got them, you've got the feeling of going uphill so well. And it's sort of, I think it's a little bit more level where we are. And then as we go up the street, the gradient increases just a little bit. Yeah, well done on that. And I like that figure there. Yeah, you've also been very precise with the drawing of the blinds on the right hand side, and that's come off really well. Well done. Yeah, thanks, Roger. And Rosella, let's zoom into this. Nice bright scene. Beautiful warmth on the road, contrasting with the cooler shadow. The values are just right. Sense of depth in the distance. The little bit of blue there. That cooler shadow contrasting against this lighter building coming down towards us. I think because the resolution of the photo, we're a little bit out of focus. We can't see the objects too well, but I can see what's going on. Figures are fantastic. Maybe the heads could be just a little bit larger of the lady there and this gentleman. Yeah, the head size of that figure is good. And then on the left-hand side, they're okay. But these two key figures here, the heads could be just a little bit larger, I reckon. But the figures are well placed. We've got the feeling of the gradient going up the street. Perspective is fantastic. That red, a gorgeous red there. Like it. Confident brush marks there in the shadows. Nice edge to these shadows as well. And the way that you've got the angle of these shadows as well. There. And the shadows coming out from the shadow from the stalls. Yeah, brilliant. Well done, Rosella. Sally. Yeah, my eyes went first of all to this area here with the red and the yellow blinds. That catches my eye, a little bit of a focal point. Very loose. Love the style. Sense of depth, fantastic. You've again, I think like a few other people, you've concentrated more on the right-hand side there. You've moved the lady figure a little bit further up. Nothing dominant in the middle there. Nice placement of figures. The figure on the right-hand side, this, I guess, a tourist here, satchel, whatever, going up the street. Yes, nice placement of that figure. Perhaps this darker figure here could be a little bit more connected with the shadow. There's quite a bit of a hard edge there. I would sort of connect, and maybe the head might be just a little bit too large on that figure. But he kept it nice and loose on the left-hand side, and I like the atmospheric feeling to that area there, and the granulation that's appearing there, over here. Beautiful transparency of the layers, great sense of depth, perspective is spot on. Yeah, well done, Sally. Sarrow. Nice and bright scene. Actually, this is probably the best table I've seen. The angle that you've got there, and you almost feel this sort of folded textiles that you've got on this side. Maybe it's curtain material or something for clothing. Yeah, that angle there and these darker brush marks, brilliant. So perspective is excellent. You've got the feeling of depth. Just watch out for just some of these lines might be just a little bit too hard, the windows and so on in the distance. The mist and smokiness or whatever, dust of that middle area, keeping it all vague. Just the feeling of the groups, of the shapes, the figures, giving the feeling of a lot of people in that area. Figures generally are very good. Could be a little bit darker with the shadow going down here, but I like the edge. Yeah, really, really good. Well done, Sarrow. Shannon. Right, a little bit of a wider dimension to this scene. We're missing the building on the right-hand side there, but that doesn't matter at all. Perspective, good job with the perspective. Good feeling with the depth as well, the value of those buildings in the distance. The figures are, well, let's zoom into some of the figures. These figures on the right-hand side, brilliant. Those there. The leg on that one, the right-hand leg, just a little bit clumsy. I think with some of the other figures, I would try and connect them with the background a little bit more, the shadows a bit more. We've got this, it's a common, not mistake, but it's a common way that a lot of people paint their figures in the shadows. They have, I don't know why, but they have these sort of lighter edges to those figures. I would say merge them in a bit more, all right? Like on this figure here, this light area here, merge it with the part of the store on the left-hand side. This figure here, that light area there, avoid that lighter area there. This figure here, maybe the light on that right-hand side, avoid that. Just try and merge it, trying to connect these shapes a bit more. Again, these figures here, a little bit too much light between the figures, all right? Try and merge them together and also exploit a light figure against a darker background or vice versa. Like here, this female figure here, lighter against a darker background. You don't need a light border to that figure. The difference in value from light to dark, it just does all the narrative for you about where what that figure is and the shape of it, the context in the background. Yeah, those two figures there are brilliant, and the way that you've done those legs there. Well done, Shannon. Suan. Well done with the perspective. Not so sure about these darker lines in the distance. I don't think it needs it. If you try and imagine those dark lines on the distant buildings not being there, this one here, that one there, that would suffice to push those buildings back even further and just giving sort of vague shapes. You can get away with it perhaps more on the right-hand side here, but I would say with some of the edges of those buildings, try and avoid the use of those darker lines there. It doesn't need it, all right? Good range of values, got the sense of light coming in. With the figures, we have on the right-hand side there, the right height of figures, but on the left-hand side, the figures are a little bit lower down. They need to be the same. These two figures here need to be the same size or similar to these 2 or 3 figures on the right-hand side, okay? Some of these darker figures, a dark figure against a darker background, we sort of miss that. We can't really see much what's going on there. Yeah, so just practice your figure work, Suan. With the perspective, I'm not sure if that line there, being almost in line with the shadows, whether that works. So I'm not sure if that line there is the line as the edge of the shadow, but just be careful of that. Don't think that sort of works too much. I would prefer get that kind of vertical edge in there. Keep all this darker, more organic shape, and then we've got the shadow coming out there, but a jagged edge of the shadow, and then that darker line could be like that. So we're kind of emphasizing the perspective a bit more. Do you see? So we're drawing the eye into that kind of middle area there. Thanks, Sue. Fantastic paint though, and well done. I should say that female figure, those figures on the right hand side, they're very good indeed. And just the right value of those distant buildings. Just avoid these darker edges, okay? Sylvia. Oh, very nice. I like this splattering. Very effective. That figure there. Your figures are brilliant. Yeah, so we've got a squarish dimensions going on here. I like it. Good grouping of figures. Those figures are, well, I've said it before, brilliant. The perspective is excellent. You've gone for more of a sort of lighter value building. They're lurking above the left-hand side buildings. Certainly got the feeling of depth of those distant buildings up there. I like all the little areas of the patches of paper exposed, could be objects catching the light. The figures here, yeah, perhaps that the figure with the yellow top, the bottoms might be just a little bit too bright. I would try and connect that person's legs in a little bit more with the shadows, and maybe these two here, less of this lighter area around their feet. Another suggestion, maybe just inject a little bit of colour into the shadows, just a little bit, not to make them too grey. But it's a superb painting. And nice, you probably get the top marks for the foliage of that tree. A very realistic tree, just the right shade of green. And the way that you've done the shadows in the canopy of that tree, very, very nice indeed. Well done, Sylvia. Tim, a nice warm feeling to this. The height of your figures, you've certainly got the feeling of the height of those stalls on the left-hand side. It's very well drawn. Perspective is fantastic. Very, very good indeed. The figures are excellent, particularly on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, again, I would, as I've commented so many times before, I would just try and connect the figures with the shadows a bit more and try and avoid some of the lighter boundaries to those figures as well. Perhaps with some of these figures, they could be, let's just zoom out, maybe you could have a few figures that are darker than the shadows. So assuming that we're going with this kind of value of the shadows, nicely done by the way, not overworked, nice and fresh, nice bit of granulation as well. Good colour in those shadows, but maybe go a little bit darker with some of those figures. That's a beautiful scene. It's certainly got a feeling of warmth in the scene as well, that this kind of colour, this base colour that you've done, the buildings that are catching the light, these blinds up here, the colour of the road, perfect, just right. Well done, Tim. And Vicente, I think, is the last one. Nice and loose, Vicente. Yeah. Nice composition, nicely placed figures. Perspective is very good, both right and left. You've got the sense of depth as well. Not so sure about these brush marks here. I think that would be these sort of horizontals and vertical sort of crisscrossing away. I don't think you need all that. Yeah, it looks a little bit odd. I think if that was more solid and connected with this warmer, darker value of the shadow on the left-hand side, that would work better. This figure here might be, could have, the clothing could be a little bit darker, not so bright. But the figures generally are brilliant. I like them. Got a sense of movement, good shadows. Nothing's overworked on this at all. The darkness at the top of those market stalls, and then coming a little bit lighter down to the shadows across the street. And nice bit of brushwork here. Tiny bit of use of the white gouache. You haven't overdone it. Certainly with the white gouache there. Gone a bit sort of opaque-ish in that area. Yeah, it's a beautiful painting. Well done, Vicente. So as we stay on Vicente's painting, thanks very much for sticking it through all of these critiques. I hope you learned something. And if you haven't taken part before, please give my events a go. Just go to crowdcast.io/@TimWilmot and hope to see you on the next workshop. We do different work, we do different subjects every single month. I mean, there's a street scene. The next one's going to be a harbour. Maybe after that could be something more rural, landscape. You never know. It's always going to be a different topic. And I said it, a difficult subject. It's going to challenge us. Nothing's going to be easy, okay? It's always going to be a very challenging scene. But any kind of watercolour painter, whatever skill level you're at, you're very welcome indeed to take part. So thanks for watching. Catch up with you soon on the next video. Bye-bye.